because I don't want to come across as harsh or not caring. But at a certain point, you deal with some frustration there because it's the unwillingness to go solve their own puzzles. I just want you to solve this for me. That's not going to happen. Well, I tried and I quit. Well, okay, well, that's a failing grade. I and then how could so here's an example. So I had a group case study due in an online strategy class this summer, uh, an undergraduate class, and there were two students who didn't participate with their groups. And it was acknowledged because we do peer reviews. So all the other students were like, hey, these guys didn't show up, they didn't contribute. So I gave them zeros. And I'd had a conversation with the guys. So they knew, they acknowledged they didn't show up. They got zeros. And then one of them came back and said, why did I get a zero? Are you kidding me? It was zero because you didn't contribute. Yeah, but I'm part of the team. Well, I think you should ask the others how they felt because they don't feel like you're part of the team and you need to pick well, that's 10% of my grade. Like, that's your
Oh,
problem. You
yeah.
needed to think about that going into, you made a choice and there's consequences attached to that choice. And I know what'll happen is the end of the semester, I'll get a lousy student review from the guy, but it's okay. You get when you can always tell who gets C's and below because they give the worst evaluations. But it's just part of the job. But hey, that's something that we don't like to do either is, okay, here are the consequences to that choice. And let's
Yeah.
explain, you tell me why you made that choice. Well, I had other stuff to do. I was playing video games. I took a vacation. Okay, but you let four people down and made them do your work because you weren't around. And then you're angry because you didn't get a grade. Well, do you see the
But,
disconnect?
but you're showing to the students the grace of saying, I believe that you could act otherwise, right? That's
Hard to do sometimes though.
Yeah.
Because there's times when the dad side of me wants to come out and say, "Hey, look, you dumb shit. This is on you. You did this." But you a little more extend a little more grace and hopefully a little more constructive criticism and push them in the right direction. Yeah, yeah.
What do you think we can do with adults? I mean, we're, as you and I are both Gen Xers, so we're used to complaining about,
Well,
Gen Zers, but what can we do with adults to help?
if I can just inject something
Yes.
there. So Julia, you wrote something on LinkedIn today about the sort of emotional and cognitive state of our country. And when we started talking about Doctrine Man and how you felt that was helpful, I thought about what you had written on LinkedIn. And so we have a lot of emotional uncertainty and a lot of anxiety in the country right now. And I was thinking, well, maybe we need some kind of cartoon for our country that helps people work through these issues in more constructive ways.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you have any thoughts about that. Looks like you might be looking at what you wrote there.
Oh, I can briefly summarize.
Yeah, why don't you summarize it? What did you have to say?
Yeah, so so we're recording this two days after the assassination attempt against
on President Trump. Yes.
And I've noticed, talking to my friends and family, I've noticed that there's a desire to get into that sort of self-righteous, I hate it. It's this self-righteous, I know what's correct. So I know the answer to the story. I know the answer to the puzzle. I know what's correct. To foreshorten the time during which you are anxious because you realize you don't know what's going on and it's a complex situation. And to cut that short and to say, I know what's correct. And then I get a dopamine burst that says, oh, it doesn't feel good to know that you're right and other people are wrong. And I think it occurred to me that I think we could get addicted to the dopamine burst, just like any other dopamine burst. And in fact, we go through withdrawal in these very complex and emotional situations because we actually know that we can't get to a simple solution quickly and we're looking for our fix. So we're scrolling and we're like, what's our fix? What's the answer? How can we get to certainty? How can we get that self-righteousness back again? But that's sort of what our country needs, is to go through a sobriety program in which we realize we have to be sober around the reality that we don't know what's correct. The situation is complex. About 50% of the people in the country believe that this person represents their views, and about 50% believe that this other person represents their views, and that's the situation. So how could it be that that one side is all right and one side is all wrong? That's just like, doesn't even make sense. It's too simple. And so getting to sobriety around our own addiction to being right, I think, is really important. And so I just talked a little bit about how love can transcend that. So that's what that post was about.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm just soaking all that in because that intersects with a lot of different areas that I write about and talk about. I'm overwhelmed right now because I'm thinking it's like the mind starts to spin immediately, right? So this, how do you get people how do you teach people to think critically, question what they see, and then turn that into something useful for everybody else? And I think we struggle with that. You're right. Everybody's right. And then I've never thought about it from the idea of the dopamine fix, but it makes sense because you always know those people who are always right. They've never been wrong, and they have to be right. And what drives that is the dopamine. That's a thought. I never thought about that. It actually would make me feel better about some people that I get really annoyed with who are like that. And I could say, okay, well, you have an addiction problem.